Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne Boyd. Welcome to Learn and Share, brought to you by the Commonwealth Project. We hope you not only get something out of this programming, we also want you to share with your loved ones. Talk to them about what you've learned. You are not dependent on the news of the world. This is your moment to control the communication in your world. Enjoy. Welcome to Learn and Share. I'm Suzanne Boyd. You know, many of us are feeling anxious right now and overwhelmed, isolated and alone. But today we are here to help with some techniques to deal with the anxiety. Techniques that do not include medication, so alternatives to medication. And joining me today are two of my favorite people, Andrea and Lee Vallely. They are transformational coaches and they own a coaching business called Spread Happy, which I love because you guys do spread happy.
Thank you.
So let's talk about sort of this inside out understanding, which is what you all do. And so let's talk about anxiety, because I'm sure a lot of your clients are reaching out to you and feeling anxious at this time, right?
Yes, yeah, I would say so. So we teach the actual principles that create the human experience so that we're not at the mercy of the world, so that we're not at the mercy of our conditions, of what's happening. When we're at the mercy of the world, we're always going to be looking outside of ourselves to feel better. And that's very exhausting and it never works. So we teach people the actual physics behind our psychological experience so that we have a better understanding of where to go to feel better. It would be like if you're driving a car and your check engine light goes on and you beep at the guy next to you and say, hey buddy, you want to check your engine? That's what we do in life. We look outside of ourselves to fix what's actually happening through us.
Right.
So that's the underlying premise of how we teach people how to have a better life.
And you had said that anxiety is really just thought, right?
It is, yeah. Well, we live in the feeling of our thinking moment to moment. That's just fact. So anxiety is a really, really messy mind. And what happens to most of us is that when our mind is really messy, we try to figure it out. So it would kind of be like being in a snow globe and trying to like pick the little particles in the snow globe and see which one makes sense. We're never going to make sense when our mind is really messy. So the best thing for us to do in that sense is get present, is to settle down. When we try to figure things out from a messy mind, our mind's just going to get messy and we're probably going to make things much worse.
You know, this is so a perfect example. I'm at my house. I feel safe. I feel protected when I'm there. I have food. I have all the things that I need. I leave and I feel like the world is fine, right? I leave my house and go to the grocery store and people are in masks and some of them are in full like hazmat suits, and I go into crazy mode, you know, nothing has changed. My life is still safe and protected, but you get in that thinking, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason we get these anxiety feelings is because we get triggered by the outside. And we're sort of conditioned in a way to be outside in thinking. We're addicted to the outside. We want materialistic things and we want the world to be a certain place. I remember Wayne Dyer, a beautiful speaker, he always said, and he was coaching somebody, and he said, listen, what I will do is you tell me 100 people that are not of your way of thinking, and I'll coach all of them so that your life will be perfect, you know? And this is what happens. We're looking outside of ourselves to see that everything's perfect so that we can feel good within, rather than feeling good within, or at least at peace within. And sometimes peaceful is not necessarily positive. It can be just peaceful with what is, accepting of what is.
And that's no matter whether there is a pandemic going on or not, right?
Yeah,
because I think that's the whole thing. It's like, well, how do you get that peace when the world seems so chaotic?
Yeah, this is actually a wonderful time for people to look within because we have no choice. But what's so beautiful about it is that's where all of our answers are anyway. You're never going to find peace on a consistent basis if you are looking outside of yourself for the answer. Because again, you would have to be controlling the world, and that's impossible. But we have a natural system within us where we just naturally go back to a neutral, peaceful state when we don't mess with ourselves. That's built in our system. We are resilient as human beings.
I mean, it's called intuition, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that your intuition?
Absolutely.
You know, and you can't get to your or access your intuition when there's a lot of thoughts.
Exactly. We can't find that wisdom. But what's so beautiful that a lot of us, we just don't have the opportunity to see, because when we feel anxious, we think we have to do something about it. So what happens is that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because we've made it a thing. But when we recognize that we have a natural way about ourselves as human beings where we naturally, I like to say our cork naturally floats. Our cork doesn't float when we're pushing it down. But when you let go of that cork, it's going to float on top of the water. And as human beings, we have that same ability to reset, to get back to our neutral. It's when we don't fuss with ourselves that we find that peace, that we see that we are resilient, that we don't have to do anything about it. And that's where most of us make mistakes, is that we get feeling very anxious and we think we've got to fix it, fix it, fix it. We actually make the problem worse. We actually create a problem that maybe wasn't even there. We were just having a lot of thought in the moment, and we were just having a very, very busy mind. And when we learn that we don't have to do anything, that naturally we will sort of, naturally our snow globe will settle, and in that settled moment, our wisdom, our intuition will come through. If there's something for us to do about a situation, we'll know. But we will never know trying to pick out one of these little particles in the snow globe and make sense of it. It's actually, we've got to turn off our computer. Our answers don't come from the intellect. Our answers come from our intuition, our wisdom, as you were saying. Yeah.
I love the quote that we put on the whiteboard over here. It's a Sydney Banks quote, and it's, if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world.
Exactly.
So we all experience the world through ourselves, right?
Exactly. We experience it through thought in the moment.
Yeah, and it would be amazing if we can actually just experience, as in seeing it like a movie, because this is pretty much what's going on. Mm-hmm. Internally, we're seeing a movie, and we always say that our eyes are projectors, they're not cameras, because we're actually projecting the world that we're seeing. Now we're experiencing the world as it's coming through circumstances, and then projecting out through our eyes how we predict that the future will be, or how we predict how our circumstances are. But if we were not afraid of our circumstances, we would be in the present moment. And when we're anxious, what we're trying to do is predict what's going to happen into the future, or getting triggered by something that's happened in the past. And when we're in the moment, that's when that intuition comes through, because, what else can you do but handle what is right here, right now? When our mind is so messed up with what might happen in the future, what might happen in the past, or has happened in the past, and trying to deal with what is, that's when we get overwhelmed, and that's when we create this inner chemical imbalance, or not necessarily imbalance, but a chemical reaction to that anxiety.
So, I think a lot of people hear this and it sounds good, right? Like, I would love to think like that, but it's hard to actually get into that awareness, right? And also, are there certain techniques that you can use to sort of get this inside out understanding?
Absolutely. And that's the ultimate, this is all talk.
Right.
But in the heat of the moment, when anxiety is going, it's like all of that just goes.
Yeah.
The main thing for myself is breathing. Yeah. It's the connection between sympathetic, parasympathetic. So fight or flight, everything's going crazy, and that relaxation, body and intuition coming through. Just through that simple breathing automatically allows you to just calm down enough to get a response as opposed to a reaction. And so all of those words can just go by the wayside and just breathe.
Yeah, when you breathe, it does make a huge difference. We've talked about that before. I also love the movie analogy, because I think when you can see it sort of as you're watching yourself, right? Instead of you're in it, like take a step back and look at what what is in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
We wouldn't go to a movie, and if we didn't like the movie, we wouldn't run up to the screen and try to fix it. But that's what we do in our lives. We're trying to fix the outside world. The movie comes from the projector, so if we didn't like it, we'd go back to the projector, and in the old days, we'd chop out what we don't like. But the bottom line is, the point is that we're always looking outside of ourselves to fix things, that the answer is actually within us. It truly is. And if you don't mind, I think that it's time for some artwork.
Oh, yes.
Go for it.
Let's do some artwork.
Yes.
So I'm going to change around the whiteboard for you guys. Okay, who's going first? Andi or Lee?
Well, I'll go. I was just thinking that I would like to show you what we do, and then what's possible when we see what we do. and take another route. So
okay. Your whiteboard is ready, my dear.
Thank you. Well, you will notice that I am a very talented artist. Okay. So this is a person, a very skinny person. And what we do is we are always experiencing thought in the moment. Okay. So this is thought. This is our thinking. And this can get very, very messy and very, very busy. And when this looks real to us, when this looks like it's the only option, it looks as though this is solid. It looks as though there's no room for anything else. But what's true, when we settle down and settle back in, there's our heart, right? There's an infinite well of possibilities that's available to us in every single moment. Okay?
N-I-A-T-E.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't spell.
Okay.
I can't spell. How did I know I would do it? But anyway, there's an infinite well of possibilities that's always available to us when these lines around our thinking, when we see that they're not really solid. So this is like when you have your intuition, when you get a great idea, when something new comes up for you. That's coming from you. That's coming from your wisdom. That's coming from an infinite well of possibilities that's always here. But when this looks solid, we don't know that that's here. So this is what creates our worry, our anxiety. And when we think we have to do something about it, what happens is it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes a tornado.
So is one of the techniques that sometimes you don't have to do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, and I know I would love for you to piggyback on this, but the best thing we can do when we're feeling anxious is do nothing. Now, it doesn't mean don't go on with your day, because I actually highly recommend going on with your day. What I mean is do nothing mentally. Do nothing as far as thinking that you have to fix it. Because by going on with your day, whatever you had planned, it will settle, it will pass. And then if there's something, again, if that anxious thought meant something, that will come up for you and you'll know it because your mind will clear. That's just the way we're made.
Someone told me the other day that I think, even procrastination is sometimes your friend, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes doing nothing is actually the best advice.
Yeah.
Because things work themselves out, right? It's
Absolutely.
almost like when everyone was trying to get toilet paper, and so you go in this panic mode of, I've got to go and get toilet paper.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, if you just let things settle, which they did, now you can get toilet paper.
That's a perfect analogy.
It's easier said than done, isn't
It is.
Because when you're anxious, the killer about anxiety, and obviously I'm not going to go into the physical side of it, but the killer about anxiety is really that we get anxious about being anxious. I mean, we go through the fight or flight, we go through that little bit of jitters. And what happens is we start, in a sense, freaking out about the fact that we're feeling this and trying desperately to get away from it. So it is easier said than done. And the age-old thing, if you feel depressed or you feel anxious, or you go do something. Well, so in a sense, we're somewhat saying the opposite. Well, what we're saying is, don't do anything drastic. I mean, don't go start selling your shares when you start seeing or something like that.
Exactly.
It's maybe do something, go about your day, but don't do anything in terms of that psychology. Don't do anything in terms of something drastic to try desperately to change your mood.
Right.
So,
you know, I love the story of you during the hurricane, which I think really kind of tells the story. I don't know if you want to share that, of you kind of going down this path of feeling like you had to do something. When in reality, you know, when you were preparing for the storm that was coming to South Florida, or we thought it was coming to South Florida.
Yeah. And in that moment, I thought I had to get my parents on a plane. I had to send my daughter on a plane to go visit her cousin so she wouldn't have to be here while all the chaos was happening. And I actually reacted at that time, and I did that. And I remember saying, like, I was feeling the panic. I was absolutely feeling it, and I reacted, and there was no reason for me to do that. Now, what's interesting is it's all okay because my daughter had a great time, and my parents had a great time, everybody had a great time, and we were fine. You know, we never lost power, which was great.
Right.
But again, you know, it's our thinking. I liken it to, you know, we have thought trains, right? And if we get on the thought train of crazy and take it to Crazy Town and get off and set up camp, we're in trouble. But if we get on that, we're going to get on the crazy train because life happens around us. And like Lee said, we are impacted by the environment. But if we take the train through Crazy Town and we don't get off, it's going to come back to the station. Because that's just how we work. You know, our minds, we experience weather. You know, there's stormy days, there's cloudy days, and there's sunny days. But we never think to ourselves, oh my God, the sun's never going to come out again when it's a storm. Well, our experience, our emotional experience, our feelings, that's the same thing. You know, we always, like I brought my little cork, you know, we float. So we'll always get back to our neutral because we're just designed that way. So we don't have to do anything. And that's why I love what you said. It's not that you're feeling anxiety and you're just going to sit there and own position. You can go on with your day. You don't have to make a thing about the anxiety because naturally it will pass when we don't make a thing about it. And we see it in life. I mean, whatever we grab onto, we make bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's interesting.
And that creates our experience.
100%.
So
yeah, it's whatever you focus
trying
on.
to run around and do all these things, or if you're trying to create stories in your brain,
yes,
you know, that creates your experience.
You will live a chaotic life.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's natural because we have weather. We're going to flow through our experiences. We're going to flow through our thinking. But we think. That's part, it's not what we think, it's that we think. To me, that's so powerful because it takes the pressure off of having to fix my thinking or to be afraid of my thinking. You know, I think I was telling you, Monday morning I woke up, I had anxiety and I was really feeling it. But it was really, truly the first time, and we've been looking in this direction for years, but the first time that it really didn't scare me. I knew, just go on with what you were going to do. And by mid-morning, I came back and I said, Lee, it's funny, I feel fine, it just passed. There was nothing for me to do about it. But had I tried to figure out, what does this anxiety mean? What's this all about? What do I have to do to fix it? Oh, I'm feeling anxious because of my parents or you know, what's happening with the economy. Like, all these things can make me anxious if I think about them. But I knew in that moment, not a good idea. Not a good idea. If there's something for me to do, my beautiful wisdom will shine through and let me know because it's always there for me.
Yeah. I think you had a story about Federer you wanted to share.
Well, it's very poignant to this part because Federer was interviewed years and years ago.
The tennis player.
The tennis player, yes. Roger Federer. And it always struck me because the reporter really wanted to get some action from him and kept saying, so what happens? I mean, you're so calm, you're so okay with everything. And he says, oh, yeah, well, I get a little agitated. And he says, but you've never lost a game or anything in your head, have you? He says, oh, I lose games all the time. I lose tournaments. He said, but how come you never seem to, it never affects your game? And he says, oh, well, I never really related what I was thinking to how I played. And there goes the way for us to simply let go of what's going on in our minds and just deal with what is.
Yeah. Exactly. What's truly here in the present moment.
And I think that's why breathing is so important, right? Because you want to get back to just where am I right now in my body? You know, how do I feel right now? Where am I? I am safe. I am protected. You know, I think all of those things really do.
Yeah, it takes us from this craziness to this, to the calm. And that's where we'll know if there's something to do, we'll know. And most of the time, we think there's something to do and there's just not.
Nothing to
there's
do.
just not.
Yeah.
You know, we're sort of
Procrastination is your friend.
Yeah, we're just sort of worried
From the
for no
procrastinator.
reason. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Whoever benefited from worrying about anything, right? How did worrying ever make something better? Yeah.
All right. Well, Andi and Lee, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you would like to get in touch with Andi and Lee, you can go to their website, spreadhappy.net. Spreadhappy.net. And you've got some great information also on your website as well.
Lots of information, lots of videos, and lots of content.
Lots of pictures.
Lots
of pictures. All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. And now we're going to bring in Dr. Melanie Bone. And of course, you all know Dr. Bone. She has an office at MorseLife. And she is also going to be talking about some other alternatives for anxiety. And not just from the medical perspective, right? We've done a couple of shows together now that, you know, you've done crafting, which I think is very meditative and, you know, can help people kind of get out of their brains and get out of that anxiety. What is your number one thing that you tell your patients?
Great question. So it kind of dovetails really nicely with what Andi and Lee were talking about. I was thinking of this thing called mindfulness, which who the heck knows what mindfulness is, but essentially it's just blocking out whatever else is going on, concentrating on one thing and taking yourself out of the moment. So for me, personally, jigsaw puzzles. I do jigsaw puzzles like, ooh, baby, a lot of jigsaw puzzles. And I have them framed in my house and I can go back to the time I did them and remember them. So they're great in the moment, and then they're great later on as a memory. But for me, just working on a project that's in front of me, baking cookies, love to bake cookies. I think about the mixing of the ingredients and the taste, and I don't think about what the TV is saying. I guess it boils down to distraction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are loving puzzles right now because they're sold out at all the stores. So I guess the whole mindfulness thing is really helping people, you know, kind of get through this time and coming up with different things that you can do that will allow you to, not watch TV, right?
Right. I think it's a really bad idea to leave your TV on either Fox or CNN or whatever your favorite station is to hear all this bad news coming at you. I think it's so much better to use happy distractions. One of the things I did this past weekend, which was amazing, was I have photo albums from when I was a little girl and my family, and I just started going through and bringing back some memories of when I was a little girl, and it was a very innocent time in my life, and I found it really enjoyable. And then I could take a picture of it and text it, mail it, whatever, email it to my family. And my brother and I have now gotten into this thing where every day he sends me a funny picture of me when I was in high school. Ooh, bad hair days. And we have a really fun time going back and forth and bringing up family memories. So photo albums are a great way to do that. I even have something that I enjoy a lot, which is on your iPad, an app for coloring. And I just touch the color and touch the picture and I color. And if I make a mistake, no big deal. I could erase it and try again. So I love
adult
that.
Coloring books are really so much fun. And like you said, mindful and meditative. You can spend hours just coloring these coloring books. They're very detailed.
Very detailed, and you can get the beginner version if you don't want to be so detailed, and you can get more complicated ones, and then you can get involved in word games on your iPad. You can play Scrabble with your friends, right? And
call your family and your friends, right? I was on the phone with a friend for 2 hours the other night. I mean, And it's just, you know, and this is not someone that I talk to on a regular basis, but we caught up, and it was just, you know, it's amazing how you can reach out, because everyone's home at this time. So it's really easy to reach people.
I actually think it's true. I've had more catching up. My high school class did a virtual reunion the other day, and out of my high school class, I think 50 people showed up on a Zoom call.
Wow.
And it was remarkable, and everybody was sharing what they were feeling and how they were going through it. And it was just that emotional support of knowing you're not alone and there are other people going through it and getting ideas from them. I think you did a segment on making tea.
Yes.
See, I'm all about doing activities that just take you out of the moment and let you
the brewing
concentrate.
of the tea, and you know, when you make tea, that's really all you do. It's different from brewing coffee because you just set the button and you walk away, but with tea, you know, you're really in the moment.
Yeah.
So I love that. The other thing I think that, you know, we should talk about is, because I feel like a lot of people do need that extra push. So CBD is something that you also recommend for anxiety.
That's right. So CBD, which is another long word, cannabidiol, but it's derived from either hemp or marijuana, which, remember, they're both the same plant, the cannabis sativa plant. And you can get CBD online, you can get CBD from a marijuana physician in Florida or anywhere. And what it does is it just is relaxing and helps calm down your nervous system. It works on receptors in the brain, in your nervous system, and it helps dramatically. There's no psychoactive component, and you can do it in conjunction with another activity. And I find a lot of people might have trouble concentrating on something other than what the news is. So it maybe just allows their brain to relax a little bit so they can enjoy another activity.
Yeah. All right, and if you have any questions about alternatives for anxiety or CBD, obviously you can contact Dr. Melanie Bone. Her email is hello@drmelaniebone.com, and her phone number is 561-706-0648. All right, anything else that you would like to add that you think are good?
I think our viewers have a lot to think about after these presentations.
Right. They're like online right now ordering puzzles.
That's right. And learning mindfulness.
Right, exactly. Well, I think that is the key, right?
It is.
All right, Dr. Bone, Andi, and Lee, thank you for joining us for this edition of Learn and Share, and we'll see you back here next time. Now let's share this with your family and friends. Go to tcphealthcore.com and you'll see the Learn and Share programs right on the homepage. Also, for COVID-19 updates, head to MorseLife.org. We'd also love for you to tell us what kind of programming you would like to see. Is there something you've always wanted to learn? Email us at info@tcphealthcore.com. Continue to stay connected and learn and share.